Hey everybody, I'm Jeff. Welcome to the no beard season of Shade Tree Wisdom. So I come out here and walk in the woods, which is one of my favorite things. And I like to talk to you guys about mental health stuff, which is another one of my favorite things. I'm not college educated, I'm not a licensed counselor, I'm just a guy who has suffered a lot of trauma and invested very heavily in learning how to heal it. And I've got a lot of information in my head and a lot of experiences in my head that I figure I can come out here and walk and talk with you guys and maybe share some of it back. Maybe somebody else will get something out of it. So that's why we're here. I want to talk today about why people are so hesitant to seek mental health counseling, therapy. Mental health counseling and therapy are like four words that probably have your shoulders drawn up around your ears, right? Ugh, I don't want to do that. I don't need that. I'm not crazy, right? You're not crazy. But I think that it is important that people seek mental health counseling because just like any other part of your body, if there's something going on that where you're, okay, let's say you have hurt your knee and you can't walk on it and you're on crutches. You got to get therapy to help rehabilitate it, to help heal that wound, to help your knee to be stronger so that you can walk more efficiently, right? You may still always have a little pain. You may have a little limp now and again, but you can heal that so that it works again. Your mind is no different. So if there are areas of your life where you're not functioning as highly as you would like, why wouldn't you go to a therapist? Why wouldn't you go see somebody that could help you out with that? I'll tell you why. Because I've been through this too. It has a lot to do with just insecurity. So nobody gets out of childhood without some degree of neglect and abuse issues. Nobody. Don't sit there and say, oh, I had a fairy tale childhood and nothing ever went wrong with my childhood. It was great. Bullshit. You may have had a good childhood, but you got stuff. Everybody's got stuff. Things went wrong. Parents are all learning on the fly, and it's okay. That's the way it goes. But unfortunately, you get saddled with some of those things that you now have to deal with and be accountable for. So as you get older, you get into your 30s, you start becoming a little more self-aware. You'll start noticing, hey, you know, I'm not functioning as highly as I would like, functioning as high as I would like in this area or that area. It's time to do something about it. As easy as you would go to the doctor for something physically wrong with you, you should feel comfortable going to a counselor for something emotionally wrong. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're weak. I would go the other way and say that once you become self-aware and you realize that there's something going on emotionally that needs work, instead of feeling, make sure nobody's coming here, don't want to get clobbered by a bicycle. Okay, where was I? I would say that if you recognize that there's something emotionally deficient, just like a knee that starts hurting or your back starts aching or you got a toothache or whatever, if you recognize something that is deficient in you emotionally, that's a sign of maturity. That's a sign of, wow, you're really paying attention. And as urgently as you would go and fix anything else with your body, you should be that willing to go and fix things that are going on emotionally, because your brain's part of your body. It's an organ in your body. Things go wrong with it. Things need to be fixed with it. When people make the decision to go to therapy, it is a sign of bravery and maturity. And anybody that looks down on that or tries to give you a hard time about that, it's because they're too scared They're too immature. They're too self-unaware to go. I mean, what do? You can't judge people. You can't force them to learn on the same timeline that you learn things. Some people go into their old age and they don't understand their trauma, and they just continue to act dysfunctional until the day they die. But if you figure something out and recognize it, you catch that problem and you go do something about it, that's you being a superhero. That's you doing things to make yourself healthier, to level up, and that only is going to benefit you and everybody around you, your kids, your spouse, people you interact with at work. The more you heal the dysfunctional stuff that's making it hard for you to communicate with others, whether it's your kids or your spouse or your coworkers or whatever, friends, the more you heal that stuff, the more secure you feel, the more confident you feel, the less you're going to have the impulse to go out and do unhealthy shit, and the more you're going to have the impulse to be present and healthy in and vulnerable with people in meaningful ways. I did not seek mental health counseling until I was in my 40s. I think I'd gone to a counselor a couple of times in my 30s, like once here and then a number of years later another time. But I didn't go seek it because I didn't realize yet how important it was going to be. So I came out into young adulthood at 18, out of a house that was chaos and abuse and addiction. And I stabbed out into the world and repeated everything I learned. Because what else do you know, right? You're learning everything your parents teach you about how to function in the world. And so when you go out into the world, you don't know any different. That's just the way things are. You're going to be surrounded by, or you're going to gravitate towards, in my case, the chaotic people, the alcoholics, the narcissists, and that's your comfort zone. That's normal. That's all you learn. So I guess that's the way things are. This is who I am, and this is the people I will hang around with, right? Anyway, so that life continued on through my 20s, and it was a mess, and it was a lot of depression, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of just messy chaos. And it wasn't until I got into my late 20s, early 30s, where I was able to finally start becoming self-aware and go, hey, this isn't right. Like, something is really, really wrong here. There's got to be a better way to do this, to live life without drinking or be around people that aren't treating me so poorly or whatever. There's got to be a better way. But I didn't know what that way was, because I didn't have old Jeff talking to me in the other ear or on YouTube and kind of starting to give me some pointers of, hey, you need to pay attention to this stuff, and this is what you do. Anyway, as I became self-aware that there were things wrong, the other problem was I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't realize that counseling was something that I should be doing, and the thought of counseling was scary, because back then I felt like, oh, counseling's for crazy people. Counseling's for like the vision of like an 1800s insane asylum in old England. You know, that was the thoughts that came to mind when I thought of counseling. I was like, I ain't going to counseling. I'm fine. Well, I wasn't. And as I went into my 30s, I started trying to find books. Somebody had mentioned to me, you know, you're kind of codependent. You know, read this book, Codependent No More. Read this other book called Facing Love Addiction. And those two books like really changed my life. That kind of kick-started. I went from, I think something's wrong, to reading those two books and realizing, whoa, yeah, I got some stuff to deal with here. So then the next question was, how do I deal with it? Well, I started, I think around maybe age 35, I decided, I think I'm gonna go talk to a counselor. And I went and talked to this lady a couple of times. The first visit to a counselor is spent, like, they write out your family history, you know, all of your relationships with your parents, and kind of do a timeline so they can kind of see all the things that happened. Were there any divorces, or what was your relationship like with your father or your stepmom or your siblings or whatever like that. And then the second session that you go is typically when you start kind of starting to pick apart, you know, and talk about this thing and kind of work on that. After I went a couple of times, I was like, oh man, this is expensive and I don't have time for this, and I'm not crazy, because I was still thinking, you know, if I tell this woman all the things in my head, like the really bad things, the trauma that I dealt with, man, she's gonna recoil in horror, or she's gonna shame me, or she's gonna tell me to get out, or she's going to somehow abandon me, or, you know, because of all that insecurity stuff that comes with trauma. And so I just went a couple times and didn't go back. So I didn't really get a lot out of it, but I continued to try to find some books to read. I went to some Al-Anon meetings, which are for the loved ones of alcoholics, to try to learn a little bit more about things there. And didn't really get a lot out of that, to be honest with you. But when I got into my mid 40s, well, early 40s, when I got into my early 40s, I decided at that time things were not good, and I decided to go ahead and seek out counseling and, like, really dig in. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, you know what I mean? So I just decided to go ahead and dig into it, and I really committed. I put hours and hours in the therapist's office, and I was doing some individual counseling, and I was doing some counseling with my wife at the time. Ooh, here's a bluebird. I can't see him. And I was getting a lot out of it. I was starting to understand things a lot better, to be more self-aware. And as the last few years have gone on, I have learned so much about myself. But it takes time, and you've got to commit to it for a while. Commit to it for 6 months or a year at least. I've done more than that, but I've had some pretty bad stuff happen, so I needed a lot more work. Anyway, the point is that once I got into going to counseling and got comfortable with my counselor, and I realized that I could tell her terrible stuff about my past, and she was just going to be non-judgmental and supportive and help me work through that stuff, it gave me the confidence to keep going back and keep digging in deeper and opening more boxes of trauma and trying to figure out how to deal with it. And it has changed my life exponentially. The amount of peace and self-awareness and balance that I have. Man, I used to just be a big ball of nerves. Like, you think about a racing motorcycle that can rev 13,000 RPMs. Like your car, you can, when you really punch on it, you get about 5,000 RPMs out of it. Like a motorcycle that would rev 13,000 RPMs, I felt like I was always just like 12 or 13,000 RPMs all the time. Just anxiety and depression and anger and all this stuff. And I have over the last few years really reduced a lot of those things down to damn near nothing. And it's amazing. Going to counseling, as scary as it is to think about, once you get in there and realize that that person is safe and is supportive and is not going to hurt you or abandon you and is just going to help you work on shit, man, it just makes you want to go back more. It's like going to the gym. It's like, it's here's another analogy. So I hate doing the dishes. I hate it. I hate it more than almost any chore, except painting. I hate painting worse. But I'll look at the dishes. I'll look at the dishes every day, every day, every day. And I'll think, damn it, I need to go over there and do the dishes. And they sit there for a week. And then they sit there for 2 weeks. And I walk by it every day, and it's giving me anxiety because I'm not dealing with it. I'm like, man, I need to go do those dishes. So finally, one day, I will very begrudgingly, grumbling and cussing, I'll walk over there to the sink and I'll fill it up with hot water and put the soap in it and start doing the dishes. And guess what? I get a couple of dishes in, and all of a sudden I'm feeling good. And I'm feeling like, all right, this is cool. I'm getting this done finally. Oh, thank God, what a load off. And then it's a relief, and it feels better, and it's so worth it when I'm done doing that work. Now, granted, doing the dishes on the scale of mental health work is this compared to this, but doing your work on your mental health to heal trauma things that you're running and hiding from outside of your body, substance abuse or toxic relationships or depression or whatever, all those things are to avoid the trauma that you're trying to avoid, because turning around and looking at that feels scarier than even the worst painful things you can do to yourself outside your body. I promise you, if you're watching this and you know you've got something going on inside of you that needs to be addressed, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations, because that means that you've got some self-awareness going on. And that's a big deal. It takes a long time to start getting that self-awareness. You go 10 or 20 years into your adulthood before you start figuring shit like that out. And you're figuring it out, so right on. And the second thing I'll tell you is please, please be brave. Get yourself in with a counselor. Sit down, commit to, like, I'm gonna go 4 times. Just start with that. I'm gonna go 4 times. And make sure that you go those 4 times, because once you get, if you'll commit to that, even though you don't want to, by the time you're done with that 4th visit, I think you're gonna be in. I think you're gonna be like comfortable and willing to continue to invest and start doing those dishes. Please take care of your mental health. It is as important, it's more important than your physical health. You can live with a limp in your knee and get by. Man, do you really want to live with a limp in your brain the rest of your life? I don't want you to either. It's time to start paying attention. It's time to be self-aware. It's time to be able to say out loud, I am not functioning as well as I would like to emotionally, and I need to get some help from a therapist, mental health counselor. Ooh, don't be scared. It's just another part of your body that needs work on. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're weak. Recognizing shit and fixing it is a sign of strength. Think about that. People that are weak don't fix stuff. They just let it go. And more stuff breaks and more stuff breaks, and then they're all messed up. People who are brave, people who are self-aware, people who are on top of things, who are willing to take care of themselves, take care of themselves. And it doesn't matter in what facet of their life. Man, it sure is pretty out here today. Love these trails. See the lake? I guess that's all I got to say today. Thanks for walking with me, and I really hope that I can share stuff that helps somebody. And if you got any questions, where do I start? I think there's something wrong, but I don't know what to do about it, or I don't know who to talk to, or I don't know how to find a counselor, or what kind of counselor do I find, or I mean, anything. Leave me a comment, and I'll help you as best I can. Take care of yourself. Take care of your kids. It's time to level up. Peace.